The Borderlands 3 Platinum held me hostage for over 150 hours.
Isn't this the Borderlands about the content creators?
Well, yeah, what's your point?
And you don't see any irony in content creators holding an audience hostage?
Man, come on.
I'm talking to you, viewers.
Shut up, dude. I'm starting this video. So when I started the game, I got straight down to business, and pretty quickly I'd popped the trophy, "You've got skills," for hitting level 2. And about 5 minutes after that, I actually popped the trophy, "Welcome to the Crimson Raiders," for joining the Crimson Raiders. And man, I was popping trophies left and right. In fact, I got this one for killing a dude with a barrel, and I started to feel invincible.
Yes! I am invincible!
And I continued my invincibility streak by popping "Feeling a Little Stabby" for stabbing someone with a gun knife, immediately followed by "Florida Man" for downing myself with a grenade or explosion. And at this point, I started to feel like Pee-wee because the trophy rate came to a crashing halt.
Lord there, Pee-wee! Oh, Lord indeed!
But after a few hours, I finally popped Starbound for hitting level 10. And during all this, we're introduced to some douchey, narcissistic content creators. Whoops, wrong ones. I meant these guys. Either way, after a brief interaction with them, we finished the mission taking flight and popped the trophy "So Long, Pandora." Our next trophy saw us doing a mission where we had to fight a guy that was literally just a giant brain inside of a jar. And I cooked that brain faster than TikTok is cooking some of your brains.
I have astronauts never been to the sun. Like, I get it, like, it's hot and all, but, like, go at night.
So then I turned in that mission and popped our next trophy. Now, for the next trophy, "Stay Golden," you have to use a golden key. And in order to do that, you have to find a shift code online and then enter it here in this menu. That shift code will give you the golden keys that you then take over to this chest and use to unlock it, and it will give you weapons and the trophy. Now, the next trophy I unlocked accidentally for unlocking 10 character heads or skins. And then it was back to the story for a bit before I unlocked this trophy for completing the mission "Atlas at Last." And the trophy I got after that one was for completing the mission "Beneath the Meridian." Now, the next trophy I'm going for is called "Dropping Loads,"
What do you mean by that?
which you get by winning a live grenade at a slot machine. So obviously it was time to develop a gambling addiction.
And what will he sell first? His PS5 or his kidney?
But soon enough, man, I went on a heater and popped that trophy. And with that, we were back to the story for a bit.
Oh, shit. Here we go again.
Until I popped the trophy for completing the mission "Lair of the Harpy." And after progressing a bit more, I got the trophy for hitting level 25, at which point I decided it was a good time to start working on the trophy "Gun Pals," which you get for sending an item to a friend. The problem is, I really don't have any friends.
I got plenty of friends. The gang's all here.
So instead, I picked a random person that I haven't played games with in at least 10 years and sent them a gun, therefore popping the next trophy. Now up next, we had to fight this guy. Just look at him. He's uglier than your mother, which is saying a lot considering she looks like Sloth from the Goonies. But eventually I was able to take this guy out. Then I turned in the mission to get my next trophy. And then I decided to focus on the trophy "Mechanical," which requires us to hijack 10 vehicles and then take them to the catch-a-ride station where they will be deconstructed in order to give us new parts that we can put on our vehicles. And then it was back to the story where I had to go on some sick and twisted game show.
Which of the 7 dwarfs describes your wife in bed?
Well, not that sick and twisted, but it was still pretty bad, and I wound up having to kill this guy in front of a crowd. But then I turned in that mission for the trophy "Cross the Streamers." Up next, I popped the trophy "Apocalypso" for completing the mission "The Great Vault." And then later on in the story, this guy gave us our last piece of vault treasure, which popped us our next trophy. And with that, we only have 2 story-related trophies left.
Praise the Lord!
And the first one was for completing the mission "In the Shadow of Starlight." And then we had a final showdown with the douchey content creator. And once I took them out, I turned in that final mission in order to get our last story mission trophy. And now it's time to start the trophy cleanup for the base game. And so I started with the trophy "On Fleek," which is acquired by equipping purple rarity gear or better in every slot. And all that I was missing was a class mod. And as soon as I equipped that, I wound up popping the trophy. So the next thing I started working on was the side missions until I finally completed 20 of them, popping the a la carte trophy. And then I went back to Crazy Earl on Sanctuary, and all I had to do was purchase 20 cosmetic items from him in order to pop the trophy "My Name is Earl." And then next up, I went to Moxxi's to give her a tip.
Perhaps play a little game called Just a Tip.
And with that, we popped our next trophy. So something interesting here is that this game has 9 different gun manufacturers. And each time you get 100 kills with a gun manufactured by one of those manufacturers, you'll get something in the mail from them. Now, once you receive a piece of mail from each gun manufacturer, you pop the trophy rewards card. Now, as I'm doing all the side quests, I'm careful to make sure that I'm going to each location on the map because that's very important in order to get multiple trophies. is. Now, each planet has its own trophy for discovering each location, but the galaxy overall has a trophy for discovering all 223 locations.
You serious?
And once I had discovered all the ones on Eden 6, I popped this trophy. At this point, I continued with the side quests, and along the way, I hit level 50 just because I'm cool like that.
I'm so cool.
The next trophy I popped was for discovering all locations on Pandora. And next up, I decided to work on the Got Big Game trophy, which sees us go into random locations on the map to take out specific enemies for Hammerlock. And once I had completed all 10 of those, I finally popped the trophy. And then while exploring a bit more, I popped the trophy for discovering all locations on a planet that I can't pronounce the name of. So up next were these things called Iridian Proving Grounds, which basically is just a mission where you have to go through and clear all the enemies in a row and then make it to the end to complete it. Once I had done all 6 Iridian Proving Grounds, I popped the trophy. So up next, we were doing missions for a guy named Zero, which coincidentally is the exact number of times that your mom has turned down my advances. And these are very similar to the hunts that we were doing for Hammerlock earlier. You just go to a point on the map and kill whatever guy is there. And once you've done that 10 times, you'll pop the trophy. And I'm not going to lie to you guys, at this point in the game, I was getting kind of tired of the collectible style trophies.
I'm tired of this, Grandpa.
That's too damn bad!
But I persisted and popped the trophy for translating 30 of these Iridium slabs. And up next, I popped another trophy for discovering all the named locations on Promethea. And before long, I popped the trophy for discovering all the locations, period. Now, next up was the Slaughterhouse 3 trophy, which requires us to complete all 3 of the circles of slaughter, the last of which was so difficult, I started to feel like someone's prison property.
You are my property, to do with as I please.
But with a little perseverance, I was eventually able to succeed and get the trophy. And after an ungodly amount of side quests, I had to let these TikTokers give me a dance tutorial.
What are you doing? Backing that ass up.
But after that nightmare came to an end, I finally popped the trophy for completing all of the side quests in the game. Now, there was one last trophy I wanted to go for before switching over to the DLC, and that was the trophy Stick It To 'Em for killing 2 or more enemies with a single sticky grenade. And here you can see I completed that fairly easily, popping the Stick It To 'Em trophy. Now, the first DLC that I decided to do was Moxxi's Heist, and I focused on finishing the story first, which eventually had us killing a giant mechanical Handsome Jack. And when that was complete, I turned in the mission to pop the trophy a proper handoff, and then it was time to go back to the collectibles, despite how much I whined and cried about it.
That's too damn bad!
And thankfully, I only had to find 5 of these statues for the Firebug trophy, so I was able to accomplish it fairly quickly. Then I had to smash these 5 bottles scattered around the map in order to get the trophy Scovillain. Then I had to kill 5 guys just to steal their clothes.
What did he say?
And once I had done that, I popped the trophy Killer Look. Up next, I got the trophy Don't Be a Stranger for talking to this guy that I made out of trash. And man, I was excited for this next trophy because it was finally time to start selling more blood so I could get back to my gambling addiction. And I just needed a 21 in blackjack to get my next trophy. And finally, I started working on the final trophy in the DLC, which is Who Collects the Collector. And to get this trophy, I had to show up to the specific location looking for one particular enemy. If that enemy wasn't there, I just had to change the difficulty in order to reload the area and then try to get him to spawn again. Seeing as this enemy had a 10% spawn rate, it took a few tries, but we finally popped the trophy. And with the first DLC now complete, it was time to move on to Guns, Love, and Tentacles. And we popped our first trophy just from starting the story missions. And then a bit later in the story, we had to kill a boss called the Wendigo, and we got a trophy as soon as we completed that. And for the final story mission for this DLC, we wound up having to destroy a heart, which is the same thing I do to your mom every morning when I kick her out of my house.
Damn!
But after destroying the heart, I turned in the mission and watched these 2 dudes kiss. And then I popped the final story trophy for this particular DLC. Now, next up, I had to place this decoration of a talking fish on my wall back at Sanctuary 3. And this talking fish tells corny jokes, which I had to listen to 25 of in order to get the next trophy, which kind of let me know what it feels like to watch one of my videos. Now, this guy's name is Death Trap, and our next trophy is acquired by watching him get 50 kills. And the easiest way to do that is just drag enemies over to him and just wait for him to take them out, which I did until I eventually got 50 of them. For our next trophy, I had to collect 18 echo logs across the DLC.
Please kill me.
But somehow I survived and popped the trophy Whispers on the Wind. So then I had to complete all the crew challenges and the side missions for this DLC, which actually didn't take as long as I thought it would. And up next, I had to find and kill 4 rare spawns, which are basically just rare enemies located around the map. Each one of them has a 1 in 10 chance to spawn, so obviously it takes a little while to get all 4 of them, but I was able to accomplish that and pop the trophy. And with that, I completed the Guns, Love, and Tentacles DLC, and now it was time to move on to the Bounty of Blood. And the first trophy that I popped was for completing the first story mission called Blood from a Stone. And along Along the way, I also popped the story-related trophies, It's a Wash, Getting Off Track, Bounty Hunted, and Ruin on the Horizon. And thankfully, while I was going through the story, I was going ahead and doing all of the crew challenges that I came across, so that when I finished the story, there weren't that many to complete in order to get the That's Quite Challenging trophy. And with all of that out of the way, the only thing we had left was just completing the side missions, which popped us the Helpful Hunter trophy, as well as the How the West Was Done trophy.
I'm glad that's over.
And with the Bounty of Blood DLC completed, it was now time to move on to the Psycho Krieg. And in this DLC, we have to go inside the mind of Krieg. And I could not believe how psychotic this dude was.
Why not, you stupid bastard?
But per usual, I got straight to work on the story missions. And pretty soon, I had popped the trophies Meet and Greet, as well as the Blast and the Furious. And up next in the story, we had to kill a train. And not the kind of train your mom likes.
Jesus Christ.
But after completing that, we popped another trophy. Up next in the story, I popped the trophy Trauma Center. For the last story-related mission in this DLC, we had to fight a giant Psycho Krieg. Just to prove size doesn't matter, I took him down pretty easily. Now up next, I completed all the side missions as well as all the crew challenges in this DLC to pop the next trophy. The final trophy for this DLC had us shooting random spots around the map, also that we could open up a secret vault and unlock this last trophy. And with that, we were on to the Designer's Cut DLC. And this DLC is basically just one game mode called Arms Race. Arms Race is really just a loot extraction mode. And once I had won my first match, I popped the first trophy from this DLC. Now up next, I had to discover every single location within the map of this DLC. And then last on the list for this DLC was the Treat Yourself trophy, which made us go to all these gear extraction locations and extract 100 pieces of gear. And during this process, I had to kill so many people that my body count was rising like a TikTok girl with daddy issues.
Amelia, what can you buy with your body count? An iPad! Let's go!
And it took me over 4 hours to pop this trophy, but I finally got it. And with that, we're finally on the final DLC of the game, and the finish line is in sight. And the first trophy that I got required me to kill this giant guy, which I was able to do pretty easily. And next up, we had to start a podcast, and surprisingly, it already had more followers than my channel, which, by the way, shameless plug. Make sure you like and subscribe. But anyways, for this podcast, we had to solve a couple of mysteries, and once we had completed that, we popped our second trophy for this DLC. Now, for our last DLC trophy in the entire game, we have to farm 50 mysterious iridium piles. I found a spot to farm them. All I have to do is farm the ones in the location and then change the difficulty again to respawn in the location and then come back and do it and repeat the process over and over. Now, it was time to head back to the base game for the remaining 3 trophies. The problem is 2 of those trophies require someone to be playing with me. And as I mentioned before, I don't have any friends.
'Cause I'm all alone. There's no one here beside me.
So instead, I decided to use a second controller and do it all by myself. And the first thing on the agenda was to win a duel, which I did very easily. And next, I had to revive a player, which took a little bit more planning, but it was still fairly easy. And for the final trophy in the game, I just had to get a perfect score on the firing range, which was actually a lot harder than you would think it would be. It took me about an hour and 20 minutes just to get this one trophy, but I finally got it and then finally popped the platinum trophy. But with that, guys, subscribe to my channel and I will love you forever.
Gay!
But seriously though, if you guys had fun with this video, boy, are you going to enjoy the Grand Theft Auto one. Click here to watch it.